Today's review is for Season 1 of The Book of Boba Fett, the second installment of the Star Wars, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau Disney Plus sequel-prequel era, as well as the official spin-off series for famed bounty hunter Boba Fett, starring Temuera Morrison, Ming-Na Wen, Pedro Pascal, Carrie Jones, Timothy Olyphant, Jennifer Beals, David Pasquesi, Emily Swallow, Rosario Dawson, Mark Hamill, and Corey Burton. It takes place not too long after the post-credit scene of The Mandalorian Season 2 finale, where Boba Fett took over Jabba the Hutt's palace and is taking over the mantle of Daimyo of Tatooine. But he must fight to truly earn the respect of the people when the Pike Syndicate have stationed themselves upon the birthworld of the Skywalkers and are on the verge of taking control over the entire planet. And while all of that is going on, we get a ton of setups for Mando Season 3. Now, of course, before I start talking about the show itself, I feel like it's necessary to just talk about how I've always felt about Boba Fett for a long time, up to The Mandalorian Season 2. And you see, for a long time, I didn't always have the biggest opinions on Boba Fett as a character. Like, he was mostly just a cool-looking minor character in the original trilogy, until he got thrown into a pit right after he finally started doing stuff. And he was given, if you ask me, a pretty shitty retcon in the prequel trilogy. Although, to be fair, it did lead to him having some pretty good character development in the Clone Wars show. Speaking of Clone Wars, fun fact, I've actually met Daniel Logan, who of course actually voiced Boba in the Clone Wars, and of course actually played him as a child in Attack of the Clones. Like, I just thought it was really cool that I got to meet a Star Wars actor, and he was a really nice guy when I met him at that Comic-Con. But anyways, yeah, it wasn't until his return in The Mandalorian did Boba Fett finally become genuinely badass as a character on screen. Like, seriously, seeing him mow down all those stormtroopers like they were battle droids was some of the coolest shit ever. And it's no wonder they had Robert Rodriguez assist in making the show, since he was the one responsible for directing that entire sequence. So yeah, it was nice to see Boba Fett actually become a legit cool character. And I was definitely looking forward to this show, which was announced via ending title card in Mando Season 2. Like, it was just going to be really cool seeing how it was going to show Boba escaping the Sarlacc, how he met Fennec Shand, and also how it would show him taking over Jabba's business on Tatooine. Like, considering how great The Mandalorian is, I was expecting similar taste from this show. And now the first full season has been released and, well, I'm going to be honest. It isn't really as great as I was hoping it would be. Now, that's not to say it's a bad show by any means, but as a Boba Fett solo series, it doesn't really hit the mark completely. There's tons of great things about it that make it really hard to completely dislike it, but as a full story, it's kind of muddled, to be honest. And I will get into why that is soon enough. But, of course, I need to start by talking about all the things I liked about the show. Starting with how it furthers the development of Boba Fett, because the show does do a pretty good job at showing how Boba had become more honorable and selfless ever since he survived the Sarlacc. Being found by a tribe of Tuskens, at first used as a slave, but then they begin treating him as one of their own, and how that made him grow a more respecting perspective of things, caring about other folks more, and wanting to settle things in a more neutral way, rather than just always going in guns blazing. Like, they did a really good job at showing how he had changed since then, especially the whole story with him and the Tusken Raider tribe, which I really loved, and found sad when they were all found massacred. And I even enjoy how they showed his softer side, like how gentle and fun he is with the Banthas, and how sweet he is to the folks of Mos Espa at the end after all the Pike shit is done with. Especially how nice he is to the kids who gift him Malurons. It was just fun to see a wholesome side to the guy, you know? Now, I will admit there is an issue that I have with Boba in this show that I will talk about later, but I still liked him in the show, all things considered. I think it recharacterized him very well, and it was just cool seeing how his change in perspective happened. It also helps that Temuera Morrison gives a great performance as Boba once again. He's really great in the show. Ming-Na Wen is also great once again as Fennec Shand. She's a charismatic badass. It was pretty cool seeing how Boba helped her after finding her in Mando Episode 5. And of course, she has some great partner-in-crime chemistry with Boba, which I do look forward to seeing more of in the future. Also, the music composed by Joseph Shirley, with the main theme being composed by Ludwig Göransson, is just fantastic. My favorite obviously just being the main theme itself. It's just as amazing as the Mando theme. It has a very folkish Norse Viking sound and feel to it, which just fits so perfectly into how Boba Fett had become an honorary Tusken Raider. And it just proves that Ludwig may very well be the second greatest Star Wars composer of all time. I mean, yeah, John Williams is a legend. There's no doubt about it. But what Ludwig Göransson is able to do just brings a new and unique sound to Star Wars, and it's just done to perfection. It's different, but it still fits, and that's what makes him a new Star Wars legend. And I seriously hope that they get him to compose the Obi-Wan series. But the thing I loved the most about this show is how fan-servicey it was. Mostly by bringing back Mandalorian characters and other Star Wars characters into a live-action debut, like Black Chrysanthemum from the canon comics, bringing back Cobb Vanth and setting up his return in the post-credit scene, after genuinely making us think that he was just unceremoniously killed off. Bringing back Emily Swallow as the Armorer, since we had no clue where she was in Season 2, as well as bringing back Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano. And not only that, but they finally had her interacting with Luke Skywalker, who, by the way, huge improvement over how he looked in Season 2. Seriously, it was just amazing seeing these two icons interact, and I do hope we get to see how they actually met for the first time in the Ahsoka series. And of course, the unignorable fact that they actually brought Cad Bane into live action, and with Corey Burton voicing him once again since his return in The Bad Batch. And they brought him into live action form so perfectly. And I do like how they ended his story with Boba being the one to kill him. Sure, it's possible that he could have survived, since death is just an illusion. Please don't do that with Mace Windu. But to be honest, I'd be perfectly fine with this just being his end, because it kind of symbolizes where Boba's path may have gone had he continued his life as a bounty hunter and only look out for himself. Alone in the sands, lifeless. A fitting end for one of the most notorious bounty hunters. But who knows, he may have survived because, again, no one's ever really gone. But that's not even the best part of that fan service angle of the show. Because, of course, how can I go on without talking about the return and reunion of Din and Grogu Jaren? That's right, for anyone that was impatient to see our favorite father-son duo reunite in Season 3, don't worry, because Boba Fett is here to give us that fix. And it thankfully seems that Kylo doesn't kill him, because Luke has allowed Grogu to go live with his daddy again. And not only that, but Din has a new ship now, a Naboo fighter, and honestly, not a bad choice to replace the late Razor Crest. It even has a little baby seat for the little womp rat. So yeah, it's great that we got some early closure on that plot point before they even finished getting Season 3 made. It was amazing to see these two together again, and I cannot wait to see where their story goes in Season 3. However, this also leads me to my issues with the show, and I'm going to start off with what is easily the biggest problem the show has. You see, again, it's great that we got to catch back up with Din and Grogu and already get some closure on where Season 2 of Mando left off. And it was definitely very satisfying and emotional. It was awesome seeing all of that. But here's where the problem comes in. That entire side plot takes up 2.5 episodes, including the finale episode, and it's the thing we care about the most in this entire show. And that's because the whole actual main present-day plot of Boba and his new buddies preparing to fight the Pike Syndicate is really unengaging and actually really boring. Yet when the side plot with Din starts, it gets super exciting. So much so that it becomes less of a side plot and begins to feel like the show actually switched main storylines. Boba does not appear once in episode 5, and even when he does at the end of episode 6, he doesn't even have a line of dialogue. And even when the show remembers to focus back on Boba again in the finale, we still care more about Din and Grogu coming back together than all of that. And that's not to say that any of the final battle stuff that happened in the finale wasn't cool or fun to look at or anything, because it was. It was definitely the best part of this whole plotline in present day on Boba's side. Just some really kick-ass epic action. But emotionally, we care more about the Jaren family. And because of that, this show eventually starts to not feel like a Boba Fett show anymore, and steals almost all of Boba's focus, even though it's literally called The Book of Boba Fett. It's supposed to be his show, yet Din and Grogu are over here carrying it for him, just like Fennec is. And that's what makes the show come close to failing as a Boba Fett spin-off series. And the thing that saves it from failing as a Boba Fett spin-off entirely is all the flashback stuff, because those scenes are definitely the most interesting parts of Boba's side of the whole thing. And yeah, again, the final battle stuff in the last episode is pretty damn cool. But other than that, the main story is just really damn bland and just barely catches any of our interest. Now we can get into the other various issues I have that are a bit smaller, and I'm going to start that off with the one issue I have with Boba Fett himself. Now look, as I said earlier, I do like his character still. His development in the show is pretty good. It makes him more likable. However, the one issue I have with him is that he's not as badass as he was in Season 2 of The Mandalorian. At least not during the main present-day storyline. And what I mean by that is, whenever a big fight happens, either he's not actually the one fighting and just stands aside to let one of his new buddies do the fighting for him, or if he is fighting someone, he doesn't really put up that good of a fight and ends up retreating to heal in a bactopod. And it makes him seem pretty weak compared to how he was in Mando. Like, they say he's always in the bactopod because he's healing from scars he got from the Sarlacc. But why should that make him seem less strong when he's in a fight? He was still perfectly capable of fighting before he started using that thing. So I don't see why he was starting to seem weak now before the healing process was fully complete. Thankfully, they make up for that in the finale when they have him putting up a fight better, and they even have him riding a frickin' Rancor, which is awesome. But still, Boba's lack of fighting competency and direct combat definitely bothered me. I still like him, but I just wish he did more during this whole arc. Also, for every cool new character that's introduced in the show, there are certain other new characters that are either really bland or pretty annoying. For example, there's this biker gang of cyborgs called the Mods, who Boba hires to be some of his henchmen. And if you ask me, they feel really out of place in the Star Wars universe. Mostly because of their designs and the bikes that they ride that all look like Vespas. It made them feel more like cyberpunk characters than Star Wars characters, to be honest. And I guess I would forgive it if I cared about any person in the group, but I don't. The show hardly gives us any reason to care about their involvement. So like, why even have them here at all? Another character I don't like is this unnamed Twi'lek, who's a major domo for the mayor of Maz Espa, who's supposed to be like a funny side character, but to me they failed at making him funny because he just isn't at all. He's actually kind of annoying. He's got a pretty flowery speech and cowardly mannerisms that just turn me away from the character and make me not care whether or not he would have lived or died. I'm sure David Pasquesi had fun on the role, but to me the character just did not work. And I cared more about those two poor Gamorrean guards than I did this guy. And the final issue I have is admittingly not much of a big story issue, just something I was let down by, and that was... whatever happened to Danny Trejo's character? Like, come on, you got fucking Machete in your Star Wars show, and you're only gonna have him for one episode where he does nothing but give info about a Rancor? I just wish he could have assisted in the final battle, especially when Boba took the Rancor out for a ride against all those big-ass droids. It would have been like Machete Kills in space, especially since Robert Rodriguez directed the finale. But instead, he's just reduced to a small cameo role. They don't even give his character a name. It just felt like a waste of talent if you ask me. So yeah, the book of Boba Fett isn't exactly as great as it could have been. And even when it is, it's mostly when it's not even focused on Boba, which is just sad since it's his show. It's not a bad show, it's got great things, the music, the acting, the action sequences, appearances from other legacy characters, other references like to familiar events from the past and to the future, but it also suffers from a bland main story, introduces some uninteresting new characters with some exceptions, makes Boba look weak compared to Mando Season 2, and again, when it gets to Din, the show starts having an identity crisis and becomes The Mandalorian Season 3 prelude, and in the finale becomes The Mandalorian and a Boba Fett. And it makes me hope the show does get a second season, so we can get much more focus on Boba, and also see him being a badass again, while still holding on to his honorable views. If this is the only season, then it's not a very good Boba Fett spin-off, which is a definite shame. I'm gonna give Season 1 of the Book of Boba Fett a 5 out of 10. And if I had to name my favorite episode, I would definitely say the finale episode, because at least it makes up for how boring the Spice arc is, with Boba actually being involved in the battle, and also because it brought Din back to his son. Like, at least it managed to focus on Boba at all while Din was there, so yeah. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed my first review of 2022, I'll see you guys next time, and may the Force be with you. Peace out.